Okay, I want you to think back to a lesson that we did during Band 2 that was talking about, actually I think it was Band 1, where it's talking about all of the things that we can encounter when we're reading nonfiction that make fiction difficult, that makes it hard to understand. We talked about number overload, right? We talked about a lot of information. We talked about shifting styles of writing, going off on a detour and having to come back. Like they stop talking about that and they start talking about something else, and then they come back to it. So we talked about a lot of different things that make nonfiction reading difficult. Today we're going to kind of come at this in a different way. What we're going to be thinking about today and becoming aware of are the kinds of crafts that authors use when they're writing. And this is the standard. The standard is Reading Information 3.8. It says, explain how an author uses reasons and evidence to support particular points in a text. And the essential question today is, what craft technique did the author use to support their point? Okay? There are lots and lots of different techniques that authors can use. And so I wanted to kind of talk to you a little bit about some of the types that we're already aware of. Let's first start by taking a look at this book. It's called If. It was a book of the month back in the school year 2014 and 15. So you may not remember it. But I want to look specifically at this page right here. And you can see that's about as close as I can get. If the planets in the solar system were shrunk to the size of balls and Earth were the size of a baseball, okay, so here's Earth, Mercury would be about the size of a ping pong ball. Venus, a tennis ball. Mars, a golf ball. Jupiter, an exercise ball. Uranus, a basketball. I missed Saturn. Saturn is a beach ball. Uranus is a basketball. And Neptune is a soccer ball. Okay, so let's think for a second. Okay, let's think for a second as to why the author is comparing, because that's what he's doing, right? The author is comparing the planets to different sized balls. They're lined up next to each other. So why do you think that the author is comparing the planets to balls? What is the author trying to do? I'm going to give you a second for everybody to think, because everybody thinks. Remember the essential question? What craft technique did the author use to support their point? So, why is the author comparing different size balls to the planets? All right, what craft technique is the author using and why? You thinking, Amelia? Justin? Okay, what he said was they're giving a model to show how big and small the planets are compared to each other. Why do you think he chose balls? Why do you think he chose balls? Paige? Absolutely. The balls are round, like the planets are. They're basically round, okay? So the shape is similar. Why else? Why else do you think he used the balls, Riley?
Because the balls match different size pretty well.
Okay, they do match the size pretty well. Fiona?
There's different types of balls.
Okay, there are different types that they could use. Amelia?
The balls are different sizes, representing different sizes of
Okay, but why do you think he chose balls? Couldn't he have had a picture of the planets? Couldn't he have put the planets side by side? Pictures of the planets side by side? Do you know what a basketball is? Do you know what a soccer ball is? Do you know what a tennis ball is? So by using something that you are familiar with, because you can't look at Mercury and right next to the Earth, right? You can't. You can use a telescope, but they're not going to be right next to each other, right, to compare the sizes. So the author is using something that you're familiar with to compare the size of the planets because it's something that you know. It's something that you can familiarize yourself with. So when an author is trying to explain something to you using either a lot of numbers or data or information that's going to be too much of an overload, the author is going to compare it to something you know. Because when the author compares it to something you know, you can understand it better. So these author techniques and crafts that they employ in nonfiction writing are to help you to understand. Okay, let's take a look at something else. Go ahead and open up your Reading the Weather, Reading the World. I want you to remember, we used this text set during our pre-test, and I want you to remember that one of the questions asked you, why did the author include this part? That is testing the standard that we're talking about today. What nonfiction what nonfiction author's technique or craft was the author doing in this particular part of the text? Okay, so let's take a look at the first paragraph. Look outside. What do you see? Are there dark clouds in the sky? Does it look like it might rain? Do you need a jacket, an umbrella? When you check the weather to figure out what clothing to wear, you are making a prediction about the weather. So tell me, what is the author trying to do here? What technique is the author trying to do here? What part of this article is this? Isabella? Okay, so you do kind of get a little bit of an idea of what this text is going to be about. You know it's going to be predicting the weather, right? Put your essay author's cap on. Put your essay author's cap on. What is the author doing here? What is the author doing here, Eli? Yes, but what is the author's purpose in asking you a question? Donovan, your eyes can be two places. They can be on the screen or they can be on your text. Yes, getting you hooked. The author is trying to engage you. All right? Not only that, but the author is engaging you with something you're familiar with. This is the beginning, right? The author wants to get you engaged. The author wants to have you interested because now you can relate to it. You're interested in it. Okay, let's look at the second paragraph. Of course, if you look outside, you only know what the weather is like now. That's why many people rely on weather forecasts. Meteorologists or weather scientists make forecasts that not only let you know what kind of clothes to wear for the day, forecasts also help keep people safe from dangerous weather such as hurricanes and tornadoes. Hurricanes and tornadoes are similar in some ways and different in some ways. Knowing about each helps with forecasting. All right, so think about this paragraph. Why did the author include this paragraph? What is the author trying to do here? And if you need to, put your essay author cap on. Isabella? He tells you what he's going to talk about, right? All right, so we know that it's going to be about hurricanes and tornadoes. It's going to be predicting and forecasting. All right, so thinking about why an author does something, what their purpose, what their craft technique is, all right, is a skill that you need to be developing right now, okay? It is a 4th grade skill. Looking at a piece or a part of a text and asking yourself, why did the author include this? Right? Flip over, because this is not just about the text. This is an image of a hurricane taken from outer space. So on the International Space Station, somebody took a picture of a hurricane from a satellite. All right? So stop for a second. Why do you think the author included this picture? And think about it this way, too. It's taken from outer space. Ava, what do you think? To show you how large it is, right? To show you that it is visible from space. Miles away from space. Okay? Now, the author didn't do this for you to see the shape of it or for you to see the location of it, okay? Because the author could use, could you go through that away, please? It's making a lot of noise. Thank you. Because the author could have used something else, but the purpose of using this photograph taken from outer space was to show how large a hurricane is. All right, so let's go down here. Let's take a look at paragraph 20. You have to be careful, all right, when you are trying to determine what craft the author is using. You don't want to just say what the author is trying to say, all right? Author used the image to show how large a hurricane is. The author is not saying that you can take a picture of a hurricane from the outer space. It's not saying that they took a picture from the United States. Your thinking is deeper than that. You're really looking closely and deeply. All right, at the bottom, I'm going to read paragraph 20, and actually I don't think that they numbered that by paragraphs. I think they're numbered by lines, because I'm noticing here 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, so lines, all right? And I think that that's how they ask the question on the pre-tests, to read line 20. All right, so I'm going to read the whole paragraph. Tornadoes, on the other hand, are much smaller than hurricanes. They usually form over dry, flat land, and they might only occur for a few minutes. Tornadoes develop during thunderstorms and move unpredictably. Tornado researcher Tom Gouroulis, says tornadoes are extremely hard to pin down. I want you to stop and think for a second. Why, or I should say, what nonfiction author's craft technique is the writer using here? In this last sentence where he says, tornado researcher Tom Gouroulis says tornadoes are extremely hard to pin down. These quotation marks, what are they telling you, first of all? Ian, what are they telling you? They're telling you that that's exactly what he said, right? Those are the exact words that he said. Okay, so why do you think that the author of this article put in something that Tom Gouroulis said about tornadoes? I'm trying to pick somebody I haven't picked yet. I haven't picked you, Riley. How about you, Connor? Okay. Why do you think the author of this article put the exact words that Tom Gouroulis said? Pardon me? Say it again. What is the point? Okay, so we can say that all of the things that the author included in this paragraph are trying to prove a point, right? They're all trying to prove a point. But couldn't the author have just said, tornadoes are unpredictable? Couldn't he have just written it? Why do you think he took the exact words that came from Tom Gouroulis there, instead of just saying they're unpredictable? It's hard work. It's deep thinking. Want to give it a shot, Claire? Okay, that's very close. Very close. You want to build on that? Oh, Linda, I haven't called on you yet. Right, exactly. The author quotes using Tom Gouroulis because notice what it says. Tornado researcher Tom Gouroulis. Tornado researcher. He knows a lot about tornadoes, right? He's an expert on tornadoes, right? Okay? And like Claire says, he puts that there to say, hey, this isn't just my idea. An expert says this. An expert says this. And it does sound, Claire, it does sound like the person knows what they're talking about. Okay? It sounds like you're speaking with a voice of authority. Okay? All right. I think we're ready to take another look. This is the beginning of an article. Let me zoom back out. This is the beginning of an article that's written by Lauren Tarshish. She writes the I Survived. It was July 1967. Two 14-year-old boys, Steve Ashlock and John Cook, were enjoying a fishing trip in Montana's Glacial National Park. I can get that in. They'd arrived the day before, excited for 3 days of cooking over a campfire and sleeping under the stars. Glacier had been packed with visitors all summer, But Steve and John quickly escaped the honking cars, crowds of hikers, and trash-covered trails. They hiked several miles up to Trout Lake, one of the glittering lakes set among glaciers, thick forests, and rugged mountains. Okay, so stop. Think. First of all, what is the author doing here? What is the author doing? Yes. Writing in a narrative style, absolutely. Yes. Definitely trying to hook you with a narrative style. It occurs at the beginning of the article. Writing in a narrative style, hooking you, getting you engaged in it, right? That's exactly what's happening. All right? So when we're talking about this standard, about knowing how an author supports their reasons and their points, it's not just about the facts, say that they put facts there or details there. It's about looking beyond that, deeper than that, to see exactly what kind of craft technique they did. Now, the great part about this is once you become more aware of it and you recognize it and you're able to identify it, then you're going to be able to use it in your own writing. So today what we're going to be doing is you're going to be working with a partner. You already know who your partner is. Your masks are on. The shield is between you. I'm going to give each of you the same piece of text to work with. And you're going to use the chart in your green packet. And you're going to notice a few things here. The first column is the craft technique. So notice, make a comparison. Can everybody see? Use text features or visuals. Remember our picture of the hurricane from outer space. Quote an authority or an expert. And a narrative style is way down here at the bottom. And notice the way the chart is set up is the craft technique that the author uses. The second column is the purpose of it in order to, and then what that does for the reader, how that helps the reader to understand. So I'm going to be giving you each the same text, and you're going to be using your sticky notes. And if you don't have your sticky notes, because I know a lot of you have been using them for other things, you can write in your journal. All right. Please do not write in the text because they're not consumables. So I'm giving each of you your own copy of the same Storyworks, and I want you to read it together. And then when you recognize, remember your lens today is for author's craft technique. So when you recognize an author's craft, you're going to stop, put the sticky note on that page, write down what it is and why the author used it. And then we're going to share at the end of the work time. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, I'm going to, as soon as I pass out the text, I'll go ahead and model the chart if you're working in your journal, okay, so that you know the two things you're supposed to do. Okay, once you notice a text technique, you need to identify it, and then you also need to jot down what is the author trying to do here. Okay, all right, so go ahead and carefully move into position.